Can you have a good meeting where everything goes right and then the executives reject your pitch?
Yes, you can. And it happens quite a bit, actually. And those are for reasons that are sometimes totally out of your control. I was mentioning earlier that sometimes even on our side, we're business to business. So we're dealing directly with presidents of networks or heads of channels or VOD platforms. And we're in a meeting and we're pitching and presenting our slate of projects. And then unbeknownst to us, behind closed doors in their boardroom, they get a new mandate from the top, and all of a sudden, metrics come in, or there's some kind of a decision at the channel to pivot in terms of content, and we find out about it later. And so the next time we have a meeting, it's either we get rejected on titles that we were certain were going to happen, or we just find out that that direction you were going all in on is now no longer the case. You're now going over here. So even at our level, that happens. And so I think it's very important for anyone starting out in the industry to remember that you can pitch something in January and nobody wants it. And then July, everyone's looking for that exact same thing. And it's a lot of that is you're just sort of shooting in the dark to a degree. That's why it's important to do as much research as you can, find out the kind of core consistencies of what companies are doing, the general trends that networks or VOD platforms are going for, the general buckets of content they focus on, and at least you're kind of in the right zone. You will never have all of the information. And so yeah, you can go in, you can be on total good terms with everybody. You can be presenting yourself extraordinarily well. Your story could be very well received in the room. There could even be some back and forth in terms of paperwork, and then all of a sudden last second, we're pulling away from this deal. It happens, yes. And I think developing a thick skin and just accepting that and being realistic about that is the only way to battle it, and just move on to the next one. And the other thing is critical in that is not to lose your temper. It's to stay well composed. It goes back to the other things. Relationships are key. It's a lot like dating. You need to be able, and presentation matters even, I guess, in terms of principles of pitching. You need to handle rejection very well and be professional about it and understanding. If you need to take a day before responding, that's fine. But always respond to it with I get it, thanks for the opportunity, etc. Because then you're keeping that opportunity alive for the future. And guess what? Those companies will sometimes come back and say, we have this new project, can you write it? So if rejection happens, it's part of the game.
And can it also happen where you're in the meeting and you get these arms crossed and you think, oh, I've bombed and I just did a horrible job, and then you hear actually that you're their person?
Yes, that absolutely happens too. How do I say this? It's when you focus on genres that are just the core needs, they know whether it works or not. And these are people that get pitched dozens of projects a day in some cases. I have been in meetings where the guy showed up late and was clearly, it didn't look like he was paying attention at all. And you're just sort of you feel like talking to someone who's just staring at their phone, pitching to a teenager. And it's then all of a sudden you get that email a week later, and it's so you just got to go with it. And you can't control, this is what I tell my kids, it's you can't control what other people do. You just have to focus on what you are doing and the decisions you're making, how you're presenting yourself, and making sure that you're bringing up what you can do, presenting yourself and pitching your ideas in the best way you have the control of doing. And that's not just in the room. That's if you create a website, if you do your personal branding, how you relate to people online, the kinds of stuff you type online. That stuff doesn't go away. And you Google enough, you'll find that on people. And so it's very critical that at all times you're conducting yourself in the best manner you can. But yeah, it's I've dealt with network executives who I felt they didn't even remember that we had a meeting, and it's 2 weeks later we got a deal. So it happens, yes.
What are the 5 most common reasons a movie idea will be rejected?
I think the most obvious one is that it is just out of sync with what the company needs. So it's like, if it's just a genre or a style or, you know, TV show, movie, whatever, it's like if the project itself just does not mesh with the core basics of what the company works within, they're not gonna like turn ship for you, you know? I think a second reason after that is if your project is too similar to other things that are in the market. We work a lot with Christmas movies, Christmas romances, and you would think that there's like only 5 or 6 versions of the same story you can tell, but the truth is it's infinite. There's always unique slants you can take, but if it's too similar to something that already exists in the market or has been done, especially recently, that's something that we'll just take a step back and say, it's not gonna jive with us. Third thing, and I think this is where, as you go deeper into this is when it gets a little bit, I guess, more fresh information for writers who might not have visibility to some of these more internal workings. So I would say a third reason is when it focuses on subject matter or interactions of characters that just don't resonate well on screen. And so what I mean, a good example of that would be like something that is way too social media heavy. And I know like social media is I mean, you can start whole relationships in today's world via app and other means. So it's like, that's fine, but it doesn't translate really well on screen. And so making sure that visually from beginning to end, this project is actually going to make sense, that's pretty critical. And then you get to other things that, you know, they don't talk about in screenwriting books and they don't necessarily pitch in film schools. And that's like, what is the budget? The budget's critical. Like if you're writing something that is out of sync with the real world value of what the movie is, it's not going to make any sense. So if you're writing a basic TV movie, but you're writing it at a budget that is way above that, it doesn't correlate. The company's not going to see any merit in it because they're going to say, we're not going to pay all this money because we know where the metrics are, we know where the clients are in terms of pricing. And then if you go a step beyond that, I would say it's production related. And what I mean by that is it's a script that is written in a way that is not production friendly. Most of the people who are reading scripts have a lot of production experience and they can read the script and know like right away, at least ballpark, this is how much these things are going to cost, whether it's a TV series, whether it's a movie. They know what are the SAG rates, they know what are the crew rates. So if you have a script with like way too many cast members, way too many expensive locations, way too many things that just are complicated to make happen within the budget level of what the project you're working on should be, it's going to get rejected. But that's why I kind of put it in that category, which is it's hard for writers to know what those numbers are. In the book I wrote, Mastering the Pitch, in each section of the book, I kind of devote a chapter to like movies and then TV shows and reality TV shows and all that. And I actually put in there, well, what are the budgets supposed to be? So we put those in. So you kind of get a sense of like, you know, and a high end of this would be X dollars, a mid-level would be this many dollars, and a low budget professional, not like micro budget, shoestring budget, but like one that could actually be on TV or like an original for a VOD platform. What would that low budget look like? So if you can write at that budget level, at a production that makes sense for like 12 to 20 days of production, you're starting to kind of remove some of those layers. And then I would say I'd add a 6 to that, and that's just if the writer's an asshole. If they're just complicated to deal with, it could be a good script and you'll just pass on it.
What would a low budget, let's say, film, Christmas movie shot in another state, and sorry, not California, maybe one that has tax incentives, be? What would the budget for a low budget?
So they scale, and we don't shoot any of them in LA because LA is extraordinarily expensive to film in. We shoot, and we don't necessarily even shoot in the States. We do a lot in Canada and we do a lot in Australia. But we do work a lot in tax efficient states. Georgia's a great tax efficient state. But Netflix does so much there that, you know, it's becoming a lot more expensive to shoot there. But there's a lot of places. We just shot a movie in Kentucky We shoot a lot of places, but the general budgets are gonna be 1 million-ish to 2.5 million. But that is like total gross cost. That is like how much cash is required to shoot the movie. But the way we work is that we are being quite financially savvy in terms of how we structure deals, how payments are paid out, how we classify things. And then if we work in tax efficient states and we work within very specific parameters and we source talent and crew and utilize local resources, we can get what we call soft monies or tax rebates. Like the idea of soft monies is that there's incentive for us shooting these movies in some of these different areas, whether it's like local municipalities or local states, et cetera. They want the business, and so they're willing to sort of really make it worth our while to shoot there instead of other places. So on our side of the business, we're looking for those opportunities. You know, we know our scale of how much this stuff needs to cost. We know where we can shoot it and how we can shoot it. We also know, well, how many characters do we need in the movie so that we don't exceed our budget? How many locations do we need in there so that we don't exceed our budget? Because you start doing company moves, that gets pretty pricey. So it's a combination of being able to maximize soft monies, tax rebates, pre-sales when they're possible, license fees from a client, and a script that meshes with all of that. So if it's a screenplay that's not fitting into that model, it's not really usable for us.